Welcome to the Steven Semino Says Boom Show issue number 87.
Boom! Hey everyone, welcome to Pop XP. And before the show starts, make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications when we go live and we upload awesome new content. And don't forget, if you can, make sure to share our stream on all your social media outlets. We appreciate it, and thanks for helping us grow the Pop XP channel.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Steve and Semino Says Boom Show issue number 87. And yes, that's not Steve over there. That's Niall. Niall's usually down there, but Steve's over there. Just before anybody knows, he's trying to get on. Niall, before you go into it, how bad is Steve's computer and what does he need to do?
It's so bad that I literally just set up a GoFundMe for Steve so we can get Steve a new computer. Because this has been going on for like 2 years now, John.
And he always says he wants to come. So Steve might just show up. If he shows up, he shows up. I mean, like, enough's enough, Steve. If you can hear me out there, enough's enough. But anyways, now, we always do better with whether he's here or not.
We don't need him. We don't need Steve. I'm bald enough for the both of us. We're good.
We're good. So now tell us what's up and what's going down.
All right, what is going on, everyone? As you know, please look below, click that subscribe button, and smash that bell to get notifications when we go live like we are right now, or when we upload some awesome new content like our local comic shop tours. So check those out. And as always, John, you've got a great guest for us, so I'm excited to dive into the weeds, as Steve would say.
As Steve would say back in his mic, who knows? What's his type of computer does he have anyway? What is it called? Acme? Is it Acme?
Acme?
You know, like every time you see when
like
the cartoons,
the Wile E. Coyotes, Acme,
yeah, on Looney Tunes,
blowing
it always has like it's always Acme. It's always so basically shit. But anyways, yes, this guest that we got on today. I mean, I've been hounding him for months. Like there were times we were going to get him, then he had to do he had to go, and then whatever. But I finally got him. Why? Because number one, he is prolific. Yes, but you know, for me, I'm an easygoing guy now. I believe in some certain things. You can write. He could have written the Holy Bible for all I know, and I'm a man of God. But I like him because he's an incredible Hulk fan, and that's pretty much why I want to. He grew up on the Hulk, so that's why. But yes, this guy has done incredible stuff. Wrote also the Netflix Daredevil episodes, and great. So I love a guy that is in the industry that is also a fan, like a true fan. I mean, it's. I would say he's in the vein of Roy Thomas because Roy was one of those first, probably the first fan that got into the industry and ascended to greatness. And Christos is part of that lineage of just being a fan of the comic books. And I'm very interested to know his history in comics and all that stuff. And then, as you know, coming into it. So, Steve, wherever you are, it is what it is. But without further ado, let's bring out the prolific, the legendary, and extraordinary writer on all genres and all fronts, TV, Mr. Christos Gage.
How you doing, guys?
Welcome.
Thank you, Christos. Like I said, we're usually a foursome here. We would be, but we have a guy that was literally put his computer by the Hulk. The Savage Hulk put his computer. So I don't know how good that is. Yeah. We might see him, we might not.
It's cool. You know, whatever. I'm up for anything. Threesomes, foursomes. I'm not one to kink shame. Whatever you guys are up for, you know.
Well, thank you for
no
being
Diddy
on.
freak-offs here. Though.
Exactly.
No Diddy
Exactly.
freak-offs. Those are too complicated.
Well, Steve might like that. If you know Steve,
Steve might.
I'm sure you know
socks and
Steve.
baby oil.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
my God! I'm sure you know Steve's history. He's comic dealer by day, and who knows what Muddy Musk at night. But we'll see him later. Baby Thanos, I like to call him. Anyways, Christos, once again, thank you for coming here. You know I've been bothering you for a long time, and we finally made it happen. And
I'm glad it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, glad it worked out. So first off, where are you originally from, Christos? I think we're kind of from the same neck of the woods.
Yeah. Well, I was actually I was born in New York City, but I like to. I'm from Massachusetts because my dad, he's Greek. Actually, he was born in Greece, but his family came over and settled in Worcester, Massachusetts. So that's what I consider my hometown, and I mostly grew up there. And then of course went off to college in Rhode Island, which is very close. So I still spent a lot of time there. And my comic shop was where you worked for a while. That's Entertainment, where I still go when I'm in town. And so that's where I'm from.
Yeah, because that's when I first, back in the early Facebook days, I remember seeing you posted that how you went to That's Entertainment and stuff. And then I was thinking, because I lived in Worcester for many years, met one of my first girlfriends there. But I worked in That's Entertainment, and when I saw that you did that, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That having that little thing. And is that? I'd love to know, is that where you first started getting your comics, or was it where did you first started seeing comics? When's the first time a comic book hit you?
I don't even remember. It was probably like a newsstand in New York City, like the newsstands on the corner, like in the old days. Well, they still have them, but they're a little bit different now. I mean, they used to be really elaborate, and I don't even know what the first comic I ever saw was, but they used to have the comics like at low level, where at kids eye level, so you'd see them and you'd bug your parents to get them for you. So I don't even like. And the funny thing is, when I was little, I was more into like dinosaurs and monsters and stuff more so than superheroes. So I would pick up comic books like that. As I was telling you before, Godzilla was the first comic I ever actually collected. Like I made sure I had to get every issue, not just like here and there. So my first favorite superhero was the Hulk, because he was kind of like, like the first issue said, is he man, is he monster, or is he both?
Oh yeah.
So
and you actually saw that? Like you actually saw a reprint of that, or was it?
No. I mean, not till it was probably in like Origins of Marvel Comics the first time I saw it. Probably around like 82 or something like that. But just you could tell looking at him, and he also often fought monsters. Like I don't know, the Quintronic Man. Remember that one? It was like a big yellow robot.
Oh yeah, the what was that? The Quintronic
Man.
Yeah, that was Sal Buscema though, right? That was
It was around 2. Well, I think the cover was Ernie Chan, but it was around like 218, something like that, 219.
Yeah, because he fought, like, I remember Jack of Hearts during that time too.
Yeah,
but you probably got into the Hulk. First off, did you watch the live action series?
I did. I remember the Bigfoot episode. That was my favorite, because my problem with the live action series is I was like, this isn't as good as the comic, because they didn't have the budget. You know what I'm saying? Like he was, I mean, I liked it, but like, the Hulk fighting like a gang of bikers was just not that exciting to me.
You were a little older than me. I got into the Hulk because for the 1977, the pilot episode. Mm-hmm. My mother didn't want me to watch it, so she sent me to bed. And I had an older brother, so it was my mother and my brother on the couch watching it. But I snuck out and I watched the whole thing, and I fell in love. Which I believe, in my humble opinion, that was the best, still to this day, the best episode of the Hulk. That pilot episode was unbelievable. And
I have to check it out again.
Yeah, but just so you know, when I was telling Roy this, they called him on the set. So that big famous, when Blue Ferrigno's busting out of that steel tube, and then he comes out and all the smoke's in, Roy's off the set watching that. And I thought that was so cool, because I said to him, that was my favorite part. And I remember being a little kid, and the Hulk is going to punch the glass, and I remembered like it was like, you know how like the makeup would sometimes come off loose, and I saw that it was was skin color, and I was like, even as a kid looking at that, and I saw that, I didn't know if he was changing back or what, you know, I didn't get it at the time, but I got obsessed. And then the Hulk became one of the biggest things in the world at that time.
No, it was huge. It was huge.
Right, and then eventually I got into the comics. But so you started collecting Godzilla. Let me ask you: did you watch the cartoon too at the time?
The Godzilla cartoon? Yeah. And I didn't care. I was not mad at Godzuki. I like Godzuki.
So that's something to ask you. You were pissed at the Hulk not being as strong, but it was a little bit more. You had a little comedy edge on the Godzilla cartoon.
Yeah, I didn't mind. It's not that he wasn't as strong. It's just that like the opponents weren't as strong. Like my problem was I was like, I wanted the Hulk to fight opponents that would really give him a challenge. And that's why I like the Bigfoot episode, because I could imagine Bigfoot being a serious opponent for the Hulk, you know. But I like just regular, bikers.
But what about when I saw on TV Guide he was going to fight the old Hulk? That got me crazy. You didn't like that? As a kid, I was like,
I don't even remember that. What was that?
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
You can't remember the when he fights the old Hulk, the evil Hulk?
No.
Are you kidding me? That is the second best episode, because there's an old guy that he relishes that power. And, he goes into the whole time. Look that up.
Okay.
I'm looking that up right now. I want to see
and the guy who actually plays the old Hulk is the guy who played the Swamp Thing and stuff. Like, he's another tall guy, but he was, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't remember that. And I was like, I remember looking at the TV Guide. You had to wait all week long to see that next episode because it ends on such a cliffhanger. I'm Christos. That's crazy that you don't remember that.
I was one of these early hipsters who, like, at 6 years old, I was like, I like the source material, man.
See, I didn't.
I'm not happy.
Okay, so you're starting to collect Godzilla and stuff. Now, let's go into your evolution. Like, how did you want to be a writer at that time? Like now, and how
I didn't know at that point. I still was not aware. Like, for all I knew, God sent the comics down to the newsstand fully formed. I didn't realize people actually made the comics. At that age, probably at that point, I didn't want to be anything like. I still don't want to be an adult at the age of 53. But no, I got more into the comics, and then I got more into the superhero comics as I got a little bit older, and I started probably more seriously collecting them. So we moved to Greece for a few years when I was, I guess, around 7 years old, lived in Athens, and it was harder to find comics there. But then I found this one store that they would get all the American Marvel comics, like an entire month's worth in one shipment. So it's like I'd have to go a whole bunch without comics, and then there would be a ton of them all at once. Yeah. But then sometimes you'd be missing a couple, and that was agony. But then I'd get them all. And then I started collecting them probably around 1980 or so, more seriously, and, getting the superhero comics. And then I mostly collected them up until, I want to say, remember when they did the Heroes Reborn, and they ended the original numbering.
Yeah.
A lot of them, and that's probably when I stopped. Not because I was mad or anything at the reboot, but because that's when I was going to graduate school and I was dirt poor, and I was like, okay, I gotta cut the budget, and this is a good time to do it anyway. So that's when I started, not getting everything that I used to get. And also at that time, by that time you've read a lot of stories and you kind of get interested in more indie stuff a little bit, or the Vertigo stuff. And but there's never been a point where, a lot of people are like, oh, and then I discovered girls and I stopped buying comics. And I was like, well, yeah, girls are great and all, but not good enough to stop comics for.
Wow. Wow, Christos. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So now you're going to school, you stop the numbering. When does even comics become a possibility in your head? I want to do this.
So it's interesting because when I was in college was when I first started thinking about, well, I might like to go into screenwriting because, my father was he was a reporter and he worked for the New York Times, and he actually used to. He covered, among other things, he was an investigative reporter, but he covered the mafia in New York for a while. And as a result of that, he ended up writing. It's kind of a long story, but he ended up working on one of the Godfather movies, and this was before the third Godfather movie. Before there was a time when Francis Ford Coppola wasn't going to do it. He was like, "I'm sick of the Godfather movies. I don't want to do another one." And so my dad worked with Mario Puzo on a script for the third one, and then Coppola changed his mind, and he came in and was like, "No, I'm going to do it after all." So my dad sort of stepped back and just became a producer on it. But as a result of that, I knew that people wrote like movies and TV shows. I didn't know how one would go about becoming a comic book writer. By that time, I knew that people made comics, but it's not like now where there are online courses and there's like people teach it. Like Brian Bendis teaches a course in school,
right.
You know, how to write comics. In those days, like I graduated high school in 1989. Like there was no course you could take to be a comic book writer. So, but you could go to film school. So I was like, I think this might be something I'm be interested in doing. So I more pursued that. And that's when I ended up going to film school. And so I went to the AFI, American Film Institute in Los Angeles. And that's where I met my wife, and we became writing partners. And I mean, I'm kind of going fast here, but at one point we started writing for Law and Order SVU, and around that same time I met Jimmy Palmiotti at a convention, and
so you started writing for TV before you started writing for comics?
Yeah, which is the reverse of how people usually do.
Oh yes, I know. You downgraded. Oh my god!
I know.
Does everybody writing comics want to go?
And at that time, it was pretty unusual for people to. Well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Anyway, so I remember I said to Jimmy at one time, "Hey, we're going to be in New York for, the shooting of an episode that we wrote." And he was like, "Well, let me see if I can set up," because he knew I wanted to write comics. He said, "Let me see if I can set up lunch for you with my friend Dan DiDio, who was the editor-in-chief of DC Comics." And I said, "That would be great. I'd appreciate it." So he did. Because at that time, it was, like I said, unusual for people who worked in Hollywood to write comics. Like the only people who did it at that point were Joss Whedon and Kevin Smith. They were the only ones because they were fans. So it was still unusual enough. Now it's like everybody who writes for Hollywood wants to write comics, and comic book editors are like, "Oh my god, another one!" They don't want to.
That's when I was working at That's Entertainment, because I remember when the Kevin Smith Daredevil came out. Like like it was coming, and he did Green Arrow and stuff too. Like, but that's the time I was like at. That's when I was at That's Entertainment. I remember that. But okay, so you tell Jimmy that you want to write some comic books. He tries to set you up with Dan, and so
So I had lunch with Dan, and I pitched him this idea that he was like, I like that, write it up, and it ended up being the Deadshot miniseries, which was my first comic book work. So from there, I just kept doing stuff. I did some Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, and then I was at remember the Wizard World LA shows?
Yes.
I was at one of those, and I introduced myself to Tom Brevoort at Marvel, and he tried me out on a book they had at the time called Spider-Man Unlimited, which was each issue had like two different stories in it, and that's where they would try out sort of writers that were new to Marvel, and they would combine them with artists who were looking for like in between assignments. Like they had an assignment finished, and then they had another one that was going to start up in like 2 weeks, but they needed something in between, to keep the money coming in. So they give them like a 10-pager, So like it was funny because my first job at Marvel was with Mike McCone, who I later did Avengers Academy with. So I pitched this Spider-Man story, which was kind of semi-humorous about this villain who's he's trying to reform, and he's going through a 12-step program, and he's trying to make amends by helping Spidey fight crime, but he's really bad at it. And, Spidey doesn't want to like blow him off. But anyway, the villain was the Big Wheel, who was, kind of a loser villain. And that was well received. So I ended up doing a Union Jack miniseries for Marvel. And then probably my big break at Marvel was they were late with an issue of Civil War, because Mark Millar has Crohn's disease, and I guess he had a flare up and he was not feeling well and he was delayed. So I did, they asked me, Andy Schmidt was Tom's assistant editor, and I had worked with him on the Union Jack miniseries, and he knew that I knew a lot about Marvel history, and he knew I was pretty fast. So he said, do you think you can like write in like 1 week, like a 40-page Iron Man Captain America special that basically explains how, based on their past, how they would come to this point? I said, yeah, I can do that. And I did. And it sold really well. It had this beautiful Jimmy Chung cover. That's why it sold so well. There was one where like Iron Man is standing over Captain America, like he just won the fight. And another one where it was reversed. And I
remember that issue. I remember, because I remember it was those side issues of Civil War, though, right? Yeah. It was from McNiven did the art on the wasn't he doing the art on the regular
on the main series?
Yeah, the main series. And I remember all those other things coming out too and stuff. Okay, yeah.
Did real well, and so I got this reputation for being, the old cliche in comics is you only, to get work steadily, you have to be 2 out of 3 things: good, fast, and nice. And I was like, well, I'm as good as I can't control how good I am, but I can control how fast and how nice I am. So I'll try to be fast and nice. And so I got a reputation for being good at meeting deadlines, and I've been doing it for 20 years now.
Now, when now you start writing for Marvel, did you have anything in your head that, I mean, obviously I know eventually you got World War Hulk, X-Men, and we're going to talk about that. That's what I want to talk about. Mm-hmm. I don't want to talk about Daredevil. I don't want to talk about all that other great stuff you did. I want to talk about that. But did you go into Marvel, and did you have anything planned? Like, I know you're kind of just winging it, but did you have anything?
Is this what you want to talk about?
Yes. Oh, God. Wait, let me see. Yes.
Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
You did. Yes. We'll talk about that. My God. Good for you to have those pages. Now, but did you have something in mind like that you wanted to? I mean, I know you were just taking what they're going to give you, but did you have something in mind that you wanted to get, the character you wanted to get to?
I mean, I wanted to write like all the characters.
Okay.
I mean, it's funny because I read an interview with Brian Bendis once where he said, when you first start getting work at Marvel, you assume that at any minute somebody's going to come to you and just be like, hey, look, there's been a terrible mistake. You were never meant to work here. You got to go. You got to get out of here.
Russian roulette.
Yeah. And basically you feel like until that moment comes, you want to play with as many of the toys as you can until they kick you out. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly how I felt, because when I wrote that Union Jack miniseries, I don't know if you ever read that, but like I put so many characters in that miniseries, so many guest characters, all these villains. And I actually would have put more if Andy Schmidt hadn't said to me, dude, you got to dial back the number of characters. So like, I was just excited anytime I got a chance to write any characters. So it was like, and especially if they were characters I grew up with, and then like, so when Dan Slott asked me if I wanted to come on board to co-write with him Avengers: The Initiative, it was like a dream come true for me, because not only was it a lot of characters, but it was a lot of like second and third tier characters, which are always my favorites, like the obscure ones, so like we're writing like Devil Slayer and 3D Man and all these obscure characters, and it was so much fun. So I mean, it's not like I came in there with an agenda, because especially when you're new, you don't get to decide what you're going to do. So I was just happy to take whatever came my way. And actually that's a good part of the job is, when they come to you and say, because nobody ever comes to you and says, hey, what do you want to do? And you're like, well, I've got this great idea for a, Captain America story. It's like, no, Ed Brubaker's writing Captain America, not you. It's they'll come to you and like, look, we need a mini series starring, so and so. Can you come up with something? And then you think about it and what would make a good story for this person. And one of the things that you learn early on, I remember Andy telling me this, it's like, if you've got a story idea for Union Jack, and you could just as easily take out Union Jack and plug in like Daredevil, and it's the same story. That's not a good story, because it should be a Union Jack story, and that's what kind of gave me the idea of like the whole story is going to be about Union Jack being like a working class hero, because that was his whole deal. It was like the previous Union Jacks were all like blue-blooded aristocrats, but this one, who was introduced in the John Byrne, Roger Stern Captain America run, was like a regular, blue-collar guy. So that's what the whole thing.
The Baron Blood one. Those were great issues.
That's so good.
So
good. That's right around the time I started reading Captain America. That whole.
So that was a great time.
Nice.
And that one, Byrne was on fire at that time too.
So good.
And the ones with Mr. Hyde and Cobra.
That's exactly when I started reading that. Yeah.
I remember looking at, just really quickly, I remember looking at this too when I was a kid. And I was a little scared of Mr. Hyde because he was like so vicious and like I was, the one when he's coming up behind Captain America and all that stuff. But it really was, and I was scared for Cap, because when they tied him to the front of the ship, remember that with the chains? I was like, oh my god, yeah. But Mr. Hyde was,
and then the whole bit where he's gonna crash the tanker into like Manhattan and kill everybody. And Batroc's like, what the? I don't know if you guys can swear on your.
Yeah, you can swear.
Okay.
Say what you want.
Batroc's like, what the fuck, dude? I just want to steal some money.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good. And even the Baron Blood one, when he cuts off his head, because he had to kill him, and just Roger Stern. I think me and Steve can agree. I think Niles here too, but maybe not. But one of the, if not the most underappreciated geniuses of comics, like writing. Like,
definitely.
I completely agree. I think he's probably my, no disrespect to Roy, but Roger Stern is my favorite Avengers writer.
Well,
and that has as much to do, I acknowledge, with when I was reading Avengers as a kid as anything else. But like, he was so good. Like the whole Under Siege thing, where the villains take over Avengers Mansion. I mean, so good.
And nobody, like, I do countless shows. He is so underappreciated. I remember walking with, I was walking one way and he's coming this way, and I go, Roger, I just want to say you're one of the greatest writers. And he was so appreciative of it. And I'm just saying, this guy should be on such a higher level. And it's just unfortunate that he kind of just was kind of in that later earlier 80s, that 80s mix, that he just kind of got lost, but he always put quality work. I loved his Hulk vs. Superman. How good was that? The one with Steve Rude did, and he did that he did that. I fell in love with him with that, because I was so happy that he got to write it, because it was somebody that was a little unbiased, because he wrote. How good was his Hulk run? Especially, oh my God, he had some of the best lingo. Oh, look at that!
He made it. He made it.
Hey, Steve.
I don't even know how I'm alive right now.
Yeah, well, we're talking, Rod. You'll love this one right here. We're just talking to Christos Gage and saying that Roger Stern, one of the most underappreciated geniuses there. Yeah, I know you can agree with that. Yeah. One of the best.
Well, hi, Christos. I'm very sorry I'm so late, but my computer actually reached out and tried to attack me.
That's all right. I know the feeling.
But I'm here. But I am very fortunate that as I enter, you're talking about Roger Stern. Roger is one of my personal heroes, and I think one of the most criminally underrated creators in this entire industry.
Yeah,
I agree.
And at a moment's notice, you could call him right now and ask him to write for any company, and he could do it with magnificence. I don't know why he's not working.
Yeah. I don't know, but
that's the other thing. Yeah, not working either. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, he's terrific. And I think part of it is that, he did what a good writer should do, which is write to the strength of the artist. So, a lot of people remember, like, the John Byrne run on Captain America, which it is, but it's also the Roger Stern and John Byrne run on Captain America. You know, but you know, it's like a good writer, you know, should, and this is the case in movies and TV, you shouldn't notice the hand of the writer in it, you know, and so he did that right. But as a result, people don't think of it as the Roger Stern run on something, you know, and, you know, and he's also not the type of flashy person by nature, I don't think. I mean, I don't know him, but, you know,
Yeah,
so.
no, I saw him
at
at San Diego many years ago at the memorial for Mark Grunwald. And he was just standing in the back, and he's the tiniest little man that you can possibly imagine. From his writing, I expected to see a giant colossus of a man, but he was a small little man. But yeah, he stood at the back. He didn't say anything. He's a quiet person, but the power of his words, and his vernacular, and his craftsmanship is legendary. And I know that.
And Christos, really going back to how you were saying he's your favorite Avengers writer. The thing about Roger Stern, he has the ability. Not everybody really has this. You have a little of this yourself. I'll tell you honestly, because I can see the Roger Stern influence. But Roger Stern has the ability to make every character, no matter how many he's writing, to be that character. It's like nobody's saying something that's wasted, and that's something they shouldn't be saying. And it is so easy to follow. I mean, like, it's just them. He's so tied to exactly how they're supposed to be. And no matter what he's writing, it's so true to that character, like every letter, every word they're saying. So that's what I want to say, like, about that. But let's go back to you, though. Let's say, okay, so you're writing the Avengers Academy, you're that stuff. But now, how do you get to the World War Hulk? How do you get to that?
Well, that was one where... So that was another fairly early in my career. Andy Schmidt, again, who was my editor on Union Jack and the Civil War Iron Man Captain America special, came to me. He said, "So we're doing this thing, World War Hulk, where Hulk comes back from this alien planet, and he's more powered up than ever before, and he's pissed off at the Illuminati, and he's going after them one by one. And we have a book that's 3 issues called World War Hulk X-Men." And he's mad at Professor X, and it's kind of a bit of a thin premise because he's mad at the Illuminati for sending him off into space, and he's mad at Professor X because he was one of the Illuminati, but he wasn't one of the Illuminati when they sent him into space, when they voted to send him into space, but he wants to know how he would have voted. Anyway, you think you can do something with that? And I was like, let me ask you a question. Can I do 3 issues of just the Hulk fighting the X-Men?
That's what you did! That's what I know!
And he was like, sure. And I was like, can he be fighting all the X-Men? And he was like, actually, there was one team that logistically couldn't be fighting, but all the ones that I wanted, like the Astonishing X-Men, you know, Wolverine, Colossus, and everybody, they could all be in there. And he's like, yeah, just do that. I was like, all right, I'm in. And I did it. And then the funny part is, I didn't think Excalibur would work, which Juggernaut was in at the time, because they were in England, but we were at a convention and we were talking about the first issue, and people were asking, is he going to fight Juggernaut? And I was like, I don't see how that works. How does he get all the way across the country? And people kept saying Shi'ar technology. I was like, maybe not Shi'ar technology, but if you want it, I'm going to do it. And that's how the 3rd issue got.
Now, Christos, this is how you came into my stratosphere, because when I started reading this, and I was at that what year did that come out in? I was at Wizard World, Philadelphia, and I remember, I think they were talking about X-Men, Wolverine. World War Hulk X-Men coming out, and the last thing they said, I think it was, my God, who was the editor-in-chief at that time? Christos, do you remember? He was talking on the panel. I think it was Quesada.
Yeah, to Quesada.
Yeah, it was Joe, and he goes, yes. And the Hulk will be fighting Juggernaut. I remember I stood up and everybody, I was like, yes, like he's going to fight. But this is where Christos Gage, who's done a lot of work, once again, I'm so biased. Can you show Christos? Can you put him on the big head? Can you show the Steve versus John Cimino picture you have?
This one here?
Yo, look at that. That's the original page when they and that's when Juggernaut got his power and he got powered up and like now they're fighting on even terms. Look at that. But it was so good to see that. But Christos, this is when you came into my sphere.
Here's another one. Here's one where he like crunches Colossus's arms.
Look at Steve.
Oh, look at that.
Because he's powered up.
Loved it. And Christos, why I fell in love with you is because I was like, this guy is just writing a battle. Like, and that's all you did. And it was when he held Wolverine and he's just punching him so much that he can't even heal and he just makes him a mess. Yeah. I just love that. And I said, this guy
he can't kill Wolverine anymore because Wolverine's healing factor has been amped up to the point where he just heals from everything.
No, I know.
But this Hulk is really smart. The War Hulk is so smart. So he's like, okay, I can't kill him. So he just smashes him in the head so many times that his brain bounces off his adamantium skull so many times that he sustains brain damage.
See, Steve? You see, Steve? This is why Christos is here today. This is why. It's just like Jim Starlin. After Baby Thanos, it was all downhill. Now with Christos Gage, World War Hulk, this is all I need to know. Christos. But I swear to God, when I was reading that, I was like, I was so happy because you got it. And like having that Hulk versus Juggernaut battle, and you did it so good about like, you know, he Juggernaut was a little depowered at the beginning, you know, it was Kane Marco, and then he beats the crap out of him. But when he gets the gem and he has to be evil again.
Exactly.
But you made it, you did that so well because you still felt emotion for Juggernaut. And you didn't take up many panels. It kind of like you're like, oh, but let's see this fight. and then they have the class. See, Steve, that is how comics are supposed to be written. I don't want lovey-dovey stuff like you do, and all the leather and all the new age stuff that Niall likes. I want a fight that Jack Kirby would be proud of, and Christos, you delivered. And
I appreciate it. Well, the other fun part was like, I didn't want to just be one-sided. Like I remember having fun, like Craig Kyle and Chris Yost, who created X-23, like they loved the part where like Hulk's never seen her before, so he holds her up like it's like, oh, a girl Wolverine, big deal. But they don't know that he doesn't know that she has foot claws, so she pops out her foot claws and stabs him in the eyes. You know? And like they're gonna grow back, but for a while he's blind, so they can, you know, fight. And then Kitty Pryde phases him into the ground and just lets go. So, you know, she thinks she's crippling him forever, you know, and she's like all agonized about it. But this Hulk like regenerates from it, but it's painful, you know. So
look, it's all of a sudden I'm hearing like biblical text right now. It's so good because this is all I wanted to talk to you. Okay, sorry, Christos.
I love how excited John gets.
Go ahead now.
I literally remember being like 10, 11 years old, and me and my friend Sean would just make up our own comics, but they would just be fights, fight scenes, you know, like, you know, Colossus versus Abomination, just two random characters, you know, and
that's what
come up with the coolest fights we could. And then I was like, wait, so I'm doing this for 3 issues and they're paying me to do it. And they've got Andrea DeVito, who's this amazing artist and also the sweetest guy in the world. Like he gave me that double page spread.
Oh.
I paid him for some of the other pages, but he gave me that one. And he's so good and he did such an amazing job. And so I was like, this is, you know, this is too cool.
Oh, God, so good. Go ahead, Steve. Oh.
You know, it's me and Semino are sort of bitter and twisted. And, you know, usually anything that comes out, we're always poo-pooing it. And I think John's a little worse than me, which is saying something because I can be very harsh. And my main criticism of contemporary and modern creators is, you know, they are unable to do what you did right there. They cannot do it because they don't have the same mindset. So once you understand your audience and you're like, well, I know, you know, people have been reading comics for a while. And, you know, when I was younger, I always thought, wow, I wonder how this would do it. And then suddenly you are in a position of power. You're getting paid to do it. And you can go, oh, okay, yeah. So, by the way, because I've read all this previous material, I know how this would work and how that would work. And I think that that's a lost art And I think a lot of more modern people who are coming along, they don't have the same reference material. And secondly, they don't have that mindset. They see the way that Cimino got all excited about. It's like he's jumping around. I was the same. And for me, whenever the Hulk and the Abomination were fighting, it was just like the height. And then of course I transferred, after I saw the Juggernaut and stuff like that. And I would always get slightly peeved when someone would say, "Oh, so you're reading that Hulk and Juggernaut thing, and you didn't read Watchmen and really enjoy it that much." And I'm like, "Hey, you go and have your books. I want to see two characters beating the crap out of each other, okay, hitting volcanoes and just doing all sorts of stuff, because that's the only thing that can happen in comics." And I think it's a rare gem of a thing for a creator to have been like that as a youngster, and then be given the keys, and then also be able to pull it off. So I commend you 100%, because to make me and Cimino happy in this modern era is it's almost like the second coming. It's just almost impossible. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that too.
Christos, when I go by, I talked about this in the last episode. When I go by those construction sites and they're all destroyed, I hate to say it, I'm looking over there and I go, the Hulk and Rhino just battled it out right there. Or like Hulk, I feel terrible, but I'm just saying, like, oh my God. And that's all, even as a kid, that's all I used to think about. But see, that's what your comic, and I once again, we're all fans here, me, Niall, and Steve, crazy, but like, at that time when you were writing, that kind of fun was kind of a little bit lost, because as you know, that in that night, that was like in the mid 2000s, correct? 2000, yeah. It was starting. I think the IPs were starting to come, like, more like it was a breath of fresh air. I mean, it really was. And Christos, I'm going to say this again. I mean, I thank you for those issues, because I stopped actually collecting in 2003. That's when I stopped. I was like, I'm no more. I'm all done with this. But those 3 issues was a breath of fresh air to me, and it got me excited again. It made me feel like like I said, when we used to be in elementary school, and then I remember a kid bringing on the bad guys, and when the Abomination beats the Hulk in the first, they came, and I'm like, yeah, but he comes back. He's like, no, the stranger took him away. I went into the bathroom and I punched the wall, and I was so mad. And
he really was the strangest kid in the world. I don't know how he managed to get out of school.
Roy Thomas, who's going to watch this, can attest to this. I still yell at Roy for some things that he did. Like, I love Roy. I'm going to throw this out there. Don't get mad at me, but Hulk 125 versus the Absorbing Man. You remember that issue?
Yeah, I
Phenomenal. Do. And why I loved it, they also used it as the Viewmaster reels. I don't remember. But I got so mad because at the end, Absorbing Man grabs the Hulk, and then he takes the power away, remember? And he knocks him out, and then he lifts up that the huge mountain, but then the Gamma is all gone because he turned back to Banner.
Yep.
I was so mad at that because I wanted the Hulk to win. I took the Viewmaster, and I remember as a little kid, and I poked holes in the thing at the Hulk because I was so, Roy, you made me do that. You did, not me. You did. You're to blame. All right, let's get off of this and go to Christos. Christos has an incredible career. Niall, take it to the next level because I can't get off.
I am. I'm gonna go down the route I like, a little DC route.
I need a break.
So you've done television, right? You've done some film. Obviously, you've done comics. You've done some video game tie-in stuff too. And I know Batman's Sins of the Father tied in with the Telltale games.
Yeah.
How did you get into now kind of backing on, going on the back of these video games, then creating these tie-in filler stories?
Well, it's kind of it all sort of ties together, like around about 2009, 2010, I was asked if I wanted to work on the Captain America video game, which tied in with the Captain America movie with Chris Evans. And they came to me because I had written for film and TV. So, I had written for live actors, and that game had the actors from the movie doing the voices. So they wanted someone who both knew the comics, but also had written for live actors. So I did that, and because I'd written comic book video games, I just kept getting asked to do more. And then the DC people came to me, and then they started coming to me to write tie-in comics. And now, as a matter of fact, right now I'm writing. I'm writing a tie-in comic for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is a Disney Plus animated series, which is like an alternate continuity of Spider-Man's freshman year, or Peter Parker's freshman year. So I keep doing stuff like that, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, that's how I ended up doing that. And I actually just recently wrote just a little bit of dialogue on it's called Batman Arkham Shadow, and it's a virtual reality, like with the glasses, you know. It's a Batman game that recently came out, or is coming out in like a couple weeks, I think. Anyway, so that's how I do that. It's funny because they say all work leads to other work, and it does. It all kind of builds on itself. And it's my editor on Avengers Academy, Bill Roseman, later became the head of Marvel Games. So now he's the one who hired me to work on the Spider-Man video game for PlayStation with Insomniac Games, which, you know, obviously was a big success, came out in 2018, and I think to this day is the best-selling superhero video game of all time. We had a lot of fun on that one.
Now, when you get to write for these, though, are you actually creating the stories that they're developing into the games?
So it's very collaborative. Like for that one, they brought in Dan Slott and me, and the creative directors of the games, and then the departments heads of all the different, like, you know, I don't know what they call them exactly, the people who developed the levels of the games, and we all together worked out the storyline, and then the department heads go and work out the mechanics of what the levels are going to be. So it's very, very collaborative, like more so than anything else, because they come back to you and they're like, okay, here's what's going to happen in the level, you know, from a gameplay perspective. So like I remember there was a level where Scorpion stabs Spider-Man with a poison, and the whole point is he's got to go to 3 different places to get the ingredients for the antidote before, you know, so he doesn't die of the poison. And the whole time he's like hallucinating these different villains, including like Scorpion and Doc Ock and whatever. And so Scorpion is like saying all these, you know, talking shit to him. And so I was writing these lines, and I remember one of them was like, You're a loser. It's no wonder your uncle jumped in front of a bullet, which, of course, Scorpion, the real Scorpion, can't say because he doesn't know he's Peter Parker. But I remember writing that line, and one of the creative directors was like, that is cold-blooded, man. I was like, that's right. But that's his subconscious. Like, nobody hates Peter Parker more than he hates himself. You know, he's the most guilt-racked person in the world. So that was kind of fun. Anyway, so it's very collaborative, and it all informs itself. Like, if you get used to collaborating like that on a video game, and when you're working on a TV show, it helps, and when you're working on a comic book, it helps. So, you know, it keeps you limber. It's like working different sets of muscles, as it were.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first time I rode a horse with my wife, who grew up riding horses, like not professionally, but what's the word? Like when you actually compete, you know,
Equestrian,
yeah. And you know, we rode the horse together, and after I got off, I was sore in muscles I didn't even know I had for like 3 days, which I have since come to find out are what you call core muscles. And then, you know, I didn't ride a horse again for a while because in LA there's not a lot of places to ride horses. And but somewhere in there, I started going to physical therapy for my back because I messed up my back lifting weights when I was 19, and I started going to physical therapy, and they gave me physical therapy to build up my core muscles, and it really helped with my back pain. But then the next time I rode a horse, I didn't have any pain afterwards because I had built up my core muscles. And it turns out that what you use when you ride a horse to stay straight in the saddle is your core muscles. So like, that's a weird way of saying, you know, creatively you work different muscles in different forms of writing, but it helps with all the other forms of writing. So you bring it back to, you know, what you learn writing video games, you bring back to comics, as it were.
Go ahead, Steve.
You know, obviously being, you know, a writer who can work in this contemporary market, there, you know, when me and John talk about, you know, working within the Marvel, you know, let's just use Marvel as an example. Are you in any way intimidated by the sheer amount of product we have? So if you get given an assignment and, you know, I mean, if you were to write Amazing Spider-Man right now, these last couple of years have it's just an amazing amount of material. And, you know, have you read all of it? Are you, you know?
No, I haven't. I mean, there's some books I read, some books I don't read. But when I get a job, I say, just send me whatever I need to know to write this story. And they do.
Oh, okay.
So, and I read it. And, you know, there are some folks who try to keep up with everything. I mean, no one can keep up with everything. You're right. It's impossible.
Yes.
There are some folks who try to keep up on a little bit of everything. And there are some folks who just they just throw up their hands, you know, and, and they just ask their editors, just summarize to me what I need to know, you know, and I sort of fall in between there. I'm like, send me the books that I would have need to read to be up on this, and then I read it because I enjoy reading comic books, you know.
Yes.
It's fun. But that's how I do it. Yeah, you're right. It's not like in the old days when you could, you know, when Marvel put out 8 books or whatever.
Yes.
Remember when? Not remember because, but like, you know, in Roy's day, they actually DC distributed their books. And they only had like 8 books they could put out. That's why they had Tales of Suspense and Tales to Astonish, because they couldn't release more books.
Because I remember when I had a very early conversation with Jerry Conway many years ago, and I was like, Jerry, what did you do before you took over Thor? I mean, you've taken over Thor from Stan. What did you do? And he goes, well, I had bound copies of Journey into Mystery all the way up, and I just read them. And I was like, what? You know, which to me is an amazing amount of research, but then it gave him that breadth that when he came on, there wasn't any change. It just seemed to go from Stan to Jerry, and the stories, and it was like, oh, it's the same thing. Whereas with these days, I can only imagine if you're working in the X universe, and you're doing one title, and there's 19 books per month, and then the editor says, oh, by the way, that thing you did with that character, you can't do it because the character just did this. You know, I would imagine that being very annoying and like very frustrating in a way. Has that happened to you at all?
It can, not very often, because I haven't worked on that many. Like the closest I would say was when I was doing X-Men Legacy, and it was basically like it was a rogue focused book, and one of the things we were doing was wrapping up the storyline of the relationship between Rogue and Magneto. But like Magneto couldn't appear in the book until towards the end of the run, so you couldn't really do much. But another thing we were doing was building up Rogue's arc as from becoming a full-fledged hero, because she was going to join the Uncanny Avengers. So I focused more on that. So like we did a thing where, you know, she met up with Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers again, and they'd met before and kind of worked out their issues. But this was more of like a once and for all burying the hatchet kind of thing. You know, like they respect each other. They're not going to be best friends, but they you know, it was basically sort of them, Captain Marvel saying, okay, like basically I've let it go, you know, I don't enjoy being around you, but you deserve to be recognized as a hero, you know, stuff like that. So it can be annoying if you let it annoy you, but if you accept it as part of the rules of the game, then you know what I mean? It's like they say, it's like that thing you see on the wall, like, let me accept the things I can't, let me change the things I can, accept the things I can't, or however it goes. Right, so it's kind of like that. It's like,
well, Christos, you got into, how did you get the gig for writing Daredevil, the Netflix? I mean, that had to have been a good treat. How did that come about?
It's funny because when we heard that they were doing several different shows, including Daredevil, our manager, when I say our, I mean my wife and me, because, you know, we're a writing team, set up a meeting with one of the executives at Marvel Television. And it, you know, at the time it was real early. They hadn't really started developing any of them. So
right.
They were like, it's really early, but we'll keep you in mind. And people say that all the time. Usually nothing comes of it. But then a few years go by, and then they were actually doing it, and we get a call do you want to come in and interview with our showrunner, because we're putting it together, Drew Goddard. And Drew Goddard was one of the people who had worked on the Buffy show, and I had actually been writing Buffy comics. So I actually had that connection, and but not really, like it wasn't like a slam dunk or anything. So we went in, and the funny part is my wife, when she was real young, like still in college, worked on, or actually just out of college, she worked on a movie, Last of the Mohicans, with Michael Mann. Mm-hmm. And that's one of Drew's favorite movies of all time. Wow. And so they just talked about that. And I was like, oh, I'll really just do all the talking. I said to her, we were going in, because like I'm a big comic book person. And I found out later that he was like, I am so sick of them sending me people who are comic book people, because I'm a comic book person. I know all that stuff. I don't need that, And what he was impressed with me is I told stories about when my dad was a reporter covering the mafia, and he loved all that. He was like, this is great. This is exactly the kind of, like, he wanted a feel of like 70s, noir movies. Right. So anyway, we all really hit it off, and that's why he hired us, because it all worked out great. But it was just funny. It was kind of like serendipity, like it was meant to happen, Mm-hmm.
It was, just so you know, when I saw your credit when it came up, like, when I was watching it, because that was a great time too. It was all new, it was all fresh and all that stuff, and you were kind of like, there was no rules, like right. I mean, like they have today, like with all this stuff. But I loved it, and when I saw your name came up, I thought of the Hulk vs. Juggernaut. That's what I thought. I swear to God, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, that. So yeah, it was a good episode, but I thought of Hulk vs. Juggernaut. Sorry. Go ahead now. I'm sorry to go back. To this.
I'll take it any way we can get it.
Yeah, I just want to bring up, we did get a super chat from Internet Guy, who's for $5. Thank you, sir. Hey guys, great conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Internet Guy.
Enjoying the show.
Go ahead now. Go ahead. We'll get.
Yeah, no, so where are you going now with comics? Like, do you have anything you can talk about that you're currently working on?
Well, I've been working for the past year and a half on a video game that I can't discuss because you sign all these NDAs and things. But so I've been doing like miniseries mostly. So I did a Weapon X-Men miniseries, which is all these different Wolverines from different continuity, different multiverse Wolverines teaming up. That was a lot of fun. And then right now, like I said, I'm working on the Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man miniseries, which ties in with the cartoon. It's coming out, I think, in December. And yeah, so basically I'm doing like one miniseries at a time, because that's all I have time for, along with the video game.
Awesome.
No, I think my phone alarm is going to go off upstairs, so I might have to.
Oh, no worries. We'll start wrapping up now.
We'll start
take off.
Yeah, Steve, you got any last words for Mr.
Yeah, I'm just sort of curious. I don't know whether you guys covered this while I was fighting the computer demons. I was just wondering, specifically at Marvel, is there a franchise, is there a character that you have been like waiting to be given the chance, that you've been thinking, oh my God, you wait till I get my hands on this? Is there something at Marvel there that fits that?
I've been lucky to have gotten to write pretty much every character that I've ever wanted to at this point. Really, the only character I haven't gotten a chance to write is Godzilla. But even then, give me 1 sec. I'll be right back.
While we can go there, Steve, thanks for coming. Though, I mean, I know it's hard and all that stuff. We miss you and all that. But
we set up a GoFundMe for you to get a new computer.
Yeah, the funny thing is that I never tell when it's good or bad.
With even then, I would really only want to write Godzilla in the Doug Moe and Herb Trimpe version, like with Dr. Demonicus as the villain, and
beating the shield.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've accepted that that's not going to happen. But I've been really for it. Like I've gotten to write Devil Dinosaur. I've gotten to write, pretty much every character I've ever wanted to. So, I've gotten to work with Neil Adams and Tom Palmer, and who gets to do that? It's ridiculous.
Yes.
Hey, Niall, give me the big head. Oh wait, Christos. Christos.
Oh yeah, Christos.
There it is. This is Dick Durock as the old Hulk. This was the old Hulk.
I remember that now. I do remember that. He scared me when I was a kid.
Yeah. Oh God, my God.
Yeah, that was a very painful episode. Very, very, very painful.
The second best Hulk episode, according to John, though.
It is one of the best, but when the cure that he has in his hand is smashed, and Banner's holding the post crying, it's brutal.
Brutal.
I was like, oh God, he had one chance and that stupid idiot just smashed it. But yeah.
And when you watch that today, Bill Bixby's acting still holds up. I mean, he's such a good emotional actor. You believe? I watch it today. I can, because I have, obviously, I've watched them all a million times, but I still watch them today more for Bill Bixby than Lou Ferrigno now, because Lou Ferrigno's kind of still, still a little goofy now when you see it, but but Bill Bixby's his acting still holds up. But anyways, Christos, these are things that remind me of you. So okay, so we got to get Christos out of here. So we're gonna get any last words, Steve, for Mr. Gage?
You know what? I'm very sorry I didn't catch the whole show, but it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and I really do enjoy your enthusiasm and your level of knowledge, and hope to see you doing some stuff, really exciting stuff in the future.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you guys having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, now.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks again for coming on. I appreciate the work you've done. I've enjoyed a lot of your work, and I look forward to some of the stuff you have coming out, and I look forward to finding out what this game is you're working on. That sounds exciting.
Thank you very much.
And Christos, thanks for I'll give you my address for that page of the Hulk versus Juggernaut and all that. Thanks. I mean, that's a great thing. What a gift. What a gift.
You got enough stuff.
Yeah, you got enough stuff.
What a gift. So, Christos, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you here. I told you you're going to have some fun. It's all fanboy, good love. And thanks for giving me that happiness with those issues, because look, here I am still crazy about it, almost 20 years later.
Yeah.
But it made me love, while like I said, when the comics kind of lingered away from me, it kind of brought back that enthusiasm I had when I was a kid. And that's what a good story's supposed to do. Right.
That's what it's all about.
It's what it's all about. So thank you so much. All right, Steve, get us out of here. Thank
you.
Have
a good one. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on Pop XP. If you haven't already, make sure to click that subscribe button and also click the bell for notifications when we go live and we upload some awesome new content. Also, don't forget to head on over to Twitter and follow us at the Pop XP and over on Instagram at the Pop XP. Thanks again everyone, and we'll see you soon.